I think what we have this time is something that is very, very different. It's not a typical two-way stand mount speaker. Well, what it is, it's the Tekton Troubadour. It is a two-way stand mount speaker, but it's rather large. It's 21 inches high, 13.5 inches wide, and it weighs 32 pounds. But it has two 4-inch pulp fiber mid-woofers. I had to wrap my brain around that right away. It was like, really? Yeah. And then it has three 1-inch domes, silk domes. But only one of those domes, the mid-dome, the one in the middle there, is the actual tweeter. So yeah, it is that Tekton through and through. It's a very unconventional design. Well, first of all, it does present kind of a wall of sound. That is one thing that was readily apparent as soon as I started listening to it. It does sound bigger than what you would usually get. And by the way, I'll get some things out of the way right up front. It is $1,000. It sells for $1,000 a pair. It is made in Utah, meaning it's made in the USA. My sample here is in red, very brilliant red. I like red speakers, but it comes in black and white and a bunch of colors I'll put up on the screen right now. But it is, as I was getting to know this speaker, the more I listened to it, is one of those, the more I liked it. And I'm talking to Eric, and he's telling me, yeah, one of the things he was looking for is he wanted a speaker that could get close to a wall and still work and sound good. He said, yeah, put it right up against the wall, 4 inches away from the wall, and it sounds great. Even though there's a rear port. Now, I play music with a lot of bass. I put my hand near the port, barely any air movement coming out of the port. So it's tuned in a way that, yeah, you can jam it close to a wall. I tried it close, but I wound up having it about 14 inches away from the wall, meaning the back of the speaker was about 14 inches away from the wall. And by the way, those binding posts back there are solid copper Cardas binding posts. Really, really high quality binding posts. You don't usually see that in $1,000 speakers, $1,000 a pair speakers. One thing that's very important about the design is that the center tweeter is the only one that's actually working as a tweeter. The ones on top and bottom are rolling off earlier, so there's no comb filtering effects between the three domes. But Eric specified it really works best when your ear height is pretty much lined up with that center dome. And I worked on that. I got it pretty much right on the money. And he also liked it when you set up the speakers, the left and right speakers, that the tweeters are on, well, the domes, are on the outside, not on the inside. That the time alignment works best. And you want to be basically in an equilateral triangle, that the distance between the two speakers and your distance away from them is equal, which I found to be true. They did sound their best. They do not sound their best when you are off axis, and actually the further away you are from the speakers, the less good they sound. They really are a sit down and listen to speaker. They don't sound as good when you stand up. They don't sound as good when you walk away. This is a speaker, this is an audiophile speaker. This is a speaker you sit and listen to. This isn't a casual listening speaker. The sensitivity, by the way, there's not a lot of specs, but the sensitivity is 90 dB. So I did use it with a few amplifiers, namely the Gato Amp 150, because I did want to use a low sensitivity speaker as a comparison. I'll tell you about that shortly. But I did use the L-Kit TU8600R, that's a 300B amp, putting out 9.2 watts a channel. That marriage worked very, very well. And then also the Shit Agir puts out 20 watts a channel. That was also a very, very nice combination with the Troubadour. So, I was a bit nervous at first, like, it's $1,000 a pair speaker with 4-inch mid-woofers. Can it make any bass? And the answer is yes, it absolutely can. And the bass isn't just thumpy, like one-note bass. The bass is actually very tuneful, and it goes down to about 50 hertz. So not super deep. If you're into deep bass, you would actually, sure, you'd have to use a subwoofer, but that's true for a lot of stand mount speakers. Nothing unusual about that. You know, at this point, I had a good fix on what this speaker could do, but it certainly made sense to bring out a speaker for comparison's sake. And that speaker had to be, it just had to be, the Elac Unify reference. First, because it's the same price, $1,000 a pair. But it's a more, well, pretty much every speaker is more conventional, but it's a three-way speaker with a 6.5-inch woofer and a dual concentric mid-tweeter. So right away, I'm doing that comparison, and sure, the Elac sounds in its imaging tighter focus, more precise imaging, and the low end is substantially more, well, let's just use the word impactful. It kicks more, and the bass goes deeper than 50 hertz. And it just sounds more comfortable going low than the Troubadour does. As for my music selection, I've been playing German music, German rock, like Can. It's just sort of discovering, for me at least, is Neu. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, from the 70s. I think it's their third record, Neu 75, and it's just got these amazing dynamic contrasts and shadings and texture. And I'm playing it over the Troubadour, and it is really, really extraordinary. And switching back to the Elac, all of that kind of sounds, these textures and stuff, are sort of muted down. Now, I think, as I'm going back and forth, this is over the Gato Amp 150, I think that, to be fair, I think the Elac is a more neutral, flatter response speaker, and I think that what I'm hearing from the Troubadour is a little, it's just more fun, but I don't think it's more accurate. Let's put it that way. So I'm doing these comparisons with the Gato 150 because the Elacs really need power to come alive. And I'm playing it pretty loud at this point, by the way, both speakers. But then I put aside the Amp 150 and I hooked up the L-Kit TU-8600R. That's 9.2 watts per channel, 300B, just a freaking gorgeous sounding amp. And I just continued with the Troubadour. And all of that stuff, that detail, transparency, texture stuff, just went up like 50%. And I could feel like I could enter the room. You know, I could just feel like I was inside the music. It was hallucinogenic. It was trippy. It was just absolutely incredible. I couldn't do that because of the power of differences over the Elac. So I'm just continuing on with the Troubadour. And I was having a great time because it just had that ability to just unravel the music, just let me hear everything in it. It felt that way to me. I never tripped on acid, but this kind of music makes me feel like I was in there. You know, it was just that exciting. So where do you go after Neu? I changed gears with a Grateful Dead CD, Reckoning, and it was recorded in a bunch of different places, I think in California, but also here in New York City at Radio City Musical. Gorgeous recording, wonderful vocals, the instruments are all acoustic, and just really, really beautiful. And it was a nice contrast to the electronic music in Germany from more or less, similar time period to this beautiful, calming, just gentle music. I was having a really good time, and the Troubadour was letting the magic through. And from that, I went to this Bach Trio record with Chris Thiele and Edgar Meyer and Yo-Yo Ma. And with this one, it's a recent recording, an even better recording, very room sound recording. And on this one, I could really hear it, like the spaces between the instruments. It was spine tingling, just like you are there type of sound the Troubadour was giving me. So at this point, I wanted to make yet another change. I pulled out the TU-8600R, 300B amp, gorgeous. And I popped in the Shit Agir. And that's semi-class A, 20 watt per channel, great amp, $799. But it doesn't have the transparency and hyper beauty of the 300B amp. But in its place, the Chere has a sweetness to it, a beauty to it. But some of that air and roominess that I was hearing on the Bach Trio records and hearing the spaces between the instruments, that was taken down a few notches by the Chere. But it was still beautiful. It was still very, very easy to listen to. Yeah, I think the nice thing about using the Chere with the Troubadour is that you can play recordings that are not exactly stellar, you know, that have harshness and compression and processing or bright, you know. It'll tone it down a bit. And so, by the way, the preamp that I was using with the Chere was the Mytek Brooklyn DAC Plus. It's also a DAC, obviously. But, you know, you could use a Jotunheim or something like that to keep the price sort of under control. Point being that it's a pretty versatile speaker. So I used it with those 3 amps, with the Chere, with the Elkit 300B amp, and also with the Gato Amp 150. 3 very different sounding amps. And I think that the speaker did well with all three sets of electronics. I have to talk about one other music recommendation. I think it's a really nice recording, but it's very unusual and it's certainly not for everyone's taste. It is, I guess, the simple classification of this music is hip-hop, and you won't hear me talk about too much hip-hop. But I actually really like this record. I really like this artist. His name is Kid Koala. The album is called Some of My Best Friends Are DJs. And it's got great beats. It's a really good recording, but it's poking fun at audiophiles, but not audiophiles of our time, but audiophiles of the 60s. There's all these samples of like test records and stuff. It's very funny. It has a sense of humor about it. But the low bass parts are fantastic. It's a fun record to listen to. But the music on it, I think, is actually really nice too. So anyway, you can listen to it on your various streaming services. I actually have the CD, as you can see right here. And I recommend it. If I have, you know, whetted your appetite to try something new, if it's not your bag, check it out. So this has been my review of the Tekton Troubadour, a very unusual stand mount speaker made by a very unusual company based here in the US, sells their products, or at least here in the US, for very fair prices. I have a lot of respect for what Eric Alexander has achieved here. That is for sure. And now I can say it is now time for the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Mike sent this in. This is a very tasty, mostly vintage system. I really enjoyed the symmetry, even the way the vinyl is arranged in the racks. The turntable is a Denon DP-61F with a Shure V15 Type 5 MR cartridge. The CD player is an NAD C-546BEE. There's a Marantz NA7004 streamer DAC. Well, that's not vintage. But then there's a Nakamichi CR-2A cassette deck. The preamp is very cool. It's a Carver C-1. But the amp, it gets even better. The amp is an Aragon 4004 Mark II. I remember those very well. But the speakers, yeah, that's what really got me. The speakers are Infinity RS-IIIBs. Great speaker. And the cables, throwing in the cables here, they're Virtue Audio Nirvanas. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for sending that in. I hope you guys are enjoying these viewer systems because, well, as you might have noticed, I'm shooting for diversity. New systems, very affordable systems, vintage, DIY, everything. Home theater. One guy had his system in his home studio. I want to present the possibilities of what you guys have. Because after all, this is your stuff. This is what you guys are actually listening to. And I am beyond proud to show it to you, see what you guys are actually using. That's very, very exciting for me. So anyway, speaking of exciting, my name is Steve Guttenberg. This is, without a doubt, the Audiophiliac Daily Show. We are now creeping. It's slowing down, but I am not concerned. We are on our way, and it is a collaborative effort between me and all of you to reach 200,000 subscribers. I'm hoping by the time you see this, it'll be 193,000 subscribers strong worldwide. This is a worldwide effort. So thank you to everyone who has already clicked that button. If you have yet to subscribe, please do so. And when you do, please hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time there is a brilliant, or maybe not even brilliant episode. You get notified whether it's brilliant or not. And then, oh, the other thing, I keep forgetting to say this. Please give me a like. For some reason, that is important to the YouTube algorithm, and I do work for the rhythm, the algorithm. So yeah, give me a like, thumbs up, whatever it's called. That's very important, they say. Yeah, what else? Oh yeah, check out the Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/Audiophiliac, and there is a link to the algorithm. No, there's a link to the Patreon in the description if I said that too quickly. And now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the playlists. There are many, 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 many playlists, and I'm going to put up that thing where this is how you find the playlists. I'm not going to be pointing to them anymore. I don't think that works. So when you're on the main page, the home page of the Audiophiliac Daily Show, you'll see there's a little index there for playlists. You click on that and you will see playlists for speaker reviews, but also all kinds of stuff. Audiophiliac viewer system, all kinds of amazing stuff in those lists. Just a Nelson Pass playlist and a John Atkinson playlist. Lots and lots. You can binge for freaking ever on those playlists. Whew. I am now officially tired, so I can say my work here is definitely complete. Thank you again for watching, and I really, really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.